So it has been requested of me to make a video about what I do not know. But I've been requested to do a video, and here it is. So immediately, I like to share because yesterday, my soulmate and my good friend, we were playing together sound healing at a festival of sorts, and I was sharing in the midst of this sound healing journey for everybody, and in my sharing, in my guidance, I lost connection with the human part of myself. And it is very easy for me because for a great deal of my life I've been going through great struggles, and the only way to deal with those struggles really has been to dissociate from. And I don't mean dissociate in the sense of not actually recognizing them or kind of derealizing yourself from everything. It's not a derealization, it's more a conscious process of determining that I am not whatever suffering or struggle is going on in my life. And through that means, through that mechanism, we can sometimes end up in what is considered spiritual bypassing, because we're only going half the way. We're not going all the way. We're not actually getting to the finish line of integrating this understanding of our expanded, boundless self with this very contracted human experience. And so I'm notoriously good at disconnecting from that human part of myself a lot of the time, because as we all know, it's not always the most joyous experience itself, and the tendency can be to recognize that the joy apologies that the joy which is always present with us, that is inherent to awareness and not necessarily to the human conditioned mind. And so we can fall into this tendency to go halfway by only relying on or resting our attention in awareness. And that is a halfway step. It is the Vedantic process of disseminating what you are not. And it's very legitimate to do so. It is, in many cases, very much necessary. And it has been a great teaching in my life to be able to do so. But increasingly, the next step is revealed, and I'm being cornered. Yeah, I'm being cornered by life to include more of life. And and when I feel cornered, there is the tendency then to step back into identification, to feel as though my understanding is inadequate, and that then I once again re-identify with this limited sense of myself, which thinks that it is the one that is figuring all this out for itself, that it is running the show, that it is responsible for understanding life. And that's a very difficult experience. And we all know that experience of inadequacy. And so When I started recording this video, before I started recording this video, I felt this contraction inside of me. This sense of not being good enough. And the funny thing is that it's very easy to share from a place of non-attachment because there's nothing in the way. But being human also entails that we have certain hang-ups, we have certain responsibilities as humans. We have certain limitations and contractions to deal with. And I truly do not think that anyone here on Earth is so blessed to be without conditioning, and to be completely and utterly free from every condition or learned behavior or traumatic event or experience or feeling in themselves. I do not believe that that is possible. And we may go our entire life refining our mind in an attempt to free it, to inform it of the inherently free and peaceful awareness that we are. But truly, it's, as far as I'm aware, at this current moment, it is an unrealistic expectation. It's an unattainable goal. And so, yesterday, there was some miscommunication, although I suppose it wasn't really a miscommunication, because what we hear is not what other people say. Because really, we're only talking to ourselves, so we only hear what we think about ourselves. And that is how the filter of the mind works most of the time, that everything we hear and perceive, it passes through our own self-identification. And anything that doesn't stick, it'll just fall off. It won't apply to you. It won't make sense to you. And you won't be able to integrate it or confirm it in any way in your own experience. But when something does stick, it may either be on behalf of our contracted self-identification that is such a sticky thing that you can't just... It's gonna stick. It's gonna hang on there, because if there is something to attach to, then unavoidably something will. And it did. And it did today as well. So, I have a lot of self-doubts. I wish that the perfection I'm able to confirm in myself from time to time, that would be able to pervade all of experience all the time. But I'm still a human being. And so are you. So there's also an opportunity when we feel this contraction, this sense of ourselves being imposed upon what we really are as awareness. When we feel this resorting back to our old tendencies, our own inadequacies, our own doubts about ourselves, our own investment in limitation. when all this arises, there is simultaneously an opportunity to forgive. Because we expect so much of ourselves. We expect so much. And there's a lot of expectations placed upon us from other people. Most often the very people that we love the most expect the most. There's expectations from society, from your boss, your workplace. Even your dog and cat expects you to feed them. And they'll be sure to tell you. Yeah. So realistically, it's not possible to just drift off and not relate to this world while we are with this experience of the world. And so the best thing we can do really is to forgive. Forgive others for putting pressure on us, for expecting of us, and to ourselves for beating ourselves up, for re-identifying with parts of ourselves that really is not in alignment with who or what we know ourselves to be. That we go back to the limitation. That we allow the contraction to govern our lives. Because I was sharing this very grand, expanded experience of being aware. And what it is like to not be bound by anything. And I'm confronted with the fact that that is good. It is appreciated. It is recognized even. But it is only halfway there. And so I felt, yeah, I'm not good enough. I'm only halfway good enough. And how dare I speak the words that I am. When they only have truths. In a way, it's the biggest disservice we can do. That is really what I feel to be blasphemy in a way, because it is really muddying the waters, if you will. It's like mixing oil and water. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Not like that. Because you see, in order to mix oil and water, you need heat and emulsification. You need the blending together. You need unification. So perhaps we need to warm up our limitations, our human conditioning. Warm them up in the space of love and let them be emulsified as you whisk and whisk and whisk. With awareness. Maybe, eventually, they'll mix. Yeah. I cannot say when, I cannot say how, I don't know how, I don't know when. I just trust the signs that I'm given. And that even though my interpretation brings me back oftentimes to limitation, that is really not the truth of the message that is being delivered. But that's not to say that I'm not being called to more. It's not to say that there isn't a certain degree of misdeed in sharing when you're not fully integrated. But the thing is, and which point I will return to from the very beginning, is that there is no point at which we are all fully integrated. If anything, it's a spectrum, and wherever you fall on this spectrum, so to speak, that is where you are. At least that is how you have come to recognize yourself for now. And so the best you can do is to share from where you find yourself now. And there may be some backlash. There may be some pointers to your own lack of understanding, your own lack of integration, of emulsification. And it may sting a little bit. It does for me. Yeah. But at the same time, you know that that is not the full story, it's not the full picture, there's more. There's more to who you are. And your discovery is not over. Mine is not over. I still have lots to learn and yeah, it's difficult for such a know-it-all like me to admit that really I don't know shit. Yeah, I don't know anything. Yeah. But that's not to say that I'm not good enough. Simply means there's more to learn. And even more so, there's more to unlearn. There's more to discover. And there's more to discover of which I am not. But it is when we feel this contraction and this pulling back and the attention going to the suffering and the story, that is really when an opportunity presents itself. Because just like now, I offer it up. I confess to my sins. I'm not perfect. And yet I am perfect. Perfectly loved. And yet sometimes so full of doubt. Isn't it funny? Because really on the spiritual path, arrogance is the greatest enemy. Humility, your greatest ally. And if you can confess your arrogance, offer it back up, that is an act of humility. Really, they're two sides of the same coin. And that's really how a lot of our experience is, because the limitation that we often perceive is also the entry point, the doorway to the limitless. Only we need to be willing to offer it up, surrender it back. And that requires courage. It requires humility to see that you've been wrong, to see that you've taken yourself to be something that you're not. And it hurts. But we need to investigate what it is that insists that it is hurt. Because even the hurt itself, even the reaction itself, that is also seen by you. And so if you're able, you may sit with me and just feel the contraction. Feel the pain, the sting, the hurt. Because even though it is here, even though you may feel contracted in your heart, in your belly, even though there's an unrest inside your body, there's still you. That's that in which it appears. So, give it some space, allow it to be, and see what message it is here to give you. A message beyond the simple, immediate interpretation offered by your mind. Because your mind, your self-imposed identity, is the one with the story. It's the one that is insisting that it is being violated. And so its story is always going to be one of victimhood, of I'm not good enough. There is another story to you. Only you need not be so fixated on the letters on the page, the story in the book. You need also recognize the paper on which the letters are written. Because without the pages, there would be no book. There would be no story to tell. Because you see, having ink stains on a piece of paper, although it may darken the paper doesn't cease being what it is. It simply takes form, but it remains all the same. I feel that is my sharing with you today. There's so much more to you. Don't settle. Don't settle. Because once we settle, that is when things start creeping up from behind. And before we know it, we pull back into the vortex. And it may feel once again we have to fight our way out of it. But there's another way. Without struggle. Without striving. Thank you. I appreciate you stopping by for a little while, tuning in. Thank you. Take care.